Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord and Jake Gordon. There is a new rumor out there, and it just shows how little everyone knows. No one knows what's actually going to happen in the NFL draft. That's why I love this time of year so much, because the NFL insiders, who generally good, even the Adam Schefters, Peter Schrager's, they literally have no idea what's going on. Because a month ago, CJ Stroud was going first overall to the Panthers. He was definitely going number 2. Now, seemingly everyone and their mother has heard the same thing from the Texans, that he's not going number 2. Some are saying the next quarterback won't be taken until at least 4, which opens the door for a number of possibilities. The Falcons, who dream scenario, as we heard from Matt Miller earlier in the offseason, is Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Bryce Young's going number 1 overall, but CJ Stroud is a potential option. Is there actually a possibility, Alex, I'll start with you, that he falls to the 8th pick in the draft and is available without having to trade up at all?
I don't think so. I still think he'll be the number 2 pick. It doesn't make any sense why all this stuff is coming out. It happens every year where these media guys just get force-fed stories and paint these prospects in a bad light. It's a shame, but it's a part of the NFL draft experience. I think you have to question, who stands to benefit from all these CJ Stroud stories that are painting him in a negative light. And it's obviously the teams that are like the Falcons. I'm not suggesting the Falcons are the ones putting these out, but the teams that are lower down the list, not the Texans, not the Colts. Hell, it might be Ballard and the Colts. I don't know. I mean, their owner is a psychopath, so it could be them who are just trying to stir the pot, make the Texans second guess themselves. I think the Texans are dumb. I think that they thought they could get Bryce Young closer to draft time, and it blew up in their face because the Panthers were like, no, we don't want to risk anything. We just want to get our guy and be in a position to make a choice. And now the Texans are, they're kind of fucked. I don't buy it. I still think the Texans take CJ Stroud just because I watched him play in that Georgia game, and it answered every question I had. I mean, Georgia, that was not the best defense in the nation, but it was certainly one of them. And he took him to the yard. I mean, he nearly won that game. So I know the S2 testing. I'm sure Jake will talk about that and all these other concerns about, he's hard to coach, which is just such bullshit. It's crazy the stories that come out like this. And no, I don't know the guy, and I'm just saying from a, second hand opinion now, but all this stuff is just blatant bullshit to me. I still think he goes number 2, and it might not be to the Texans. It might, the Texans might trade back, but I still think he's the second pick.
Yeah. I don't know if I really buy any of the concerns with his play, but there are some concerns that I think are valid. The S2 cognition test it's a tool. It's like a lot of things. Film is a tool. The Wonderlic, it's not a good one, but it is a tool. It's stuff that people look at. But my main concern is the S2 cognition test, because there's a very strong correlation between success in the NFL and scoring well on this test. For starters, if you look at somebody like Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, even most recently out of the same offense, Justin Fields, they all did very well, which is something I really didn't expect. But the issue that I really have is this test, number one, it's based on your processing ability and your speed, which is something that NFL quarterbacks need. And this is a test you can prepare for. Apparently, this is something that you can work on ahead of time. And I don't know if Stroud just didn't do that. I don't know if he just got nervous and had a bad score. And I'm not saying just because you do poorly on this test, you're not going to be a good NFL quarterback, but the correlation is there. Whether it's causation, I don't know, but I think that is a concern. Anthony Richardson scored very well. Will Levis scored very well. Bryce Young had like a 98 out of 100. He had one of the best scores we've ever seen. And so it starts to beg the question, are these guys going to be more ready for an NFL offense than CJ Stroud is? But that's yet to be seen. Like we said, it's correlation, not causation.
Do you guys remember not too long ago, it was kind of somewhat after the season had just ended, the college football season had just ended. For the longest time, everybody considered Bryce Young the upper echelon, the guy, the number 1 pick in waiting. And I still believe that. I mean, I still think he's by far and away the best prospect in this draft. I mean, he's the Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning type. He's a can't miss guy. But as soon as the season ended, people were like, And we saw CJ Stroud perform so well against Georgia. People were like, well, maybe the difference isn't as far apart as we thought. And now we're talking about him falling. Like, that's just shows you, just like Chase said, that nobody knows shit, that these NFL teams are just using these reporters as puppets to push their own narrative, push their own agenda. It's fun to speculate and things like that. But we should always remember there's somebody who's pushing an agenda for all this. This stuff didn't just come out randomly.
Yeah, I don't understand. It just seems so obvious that this came out for a reason. Like, as I'm not necessarily talking about like the CJ Stroud S2 and the Manning passing camp and all that, but just like out of nowhere, all of a sudden the Texans aren't sold about a quarterback. Like, and for whatever reason, maybe they want to trade the pick. Maybe it is. I don't know what the reason is, but these teams have had, there's been nothing but the Texans are taking a quarterback. They're taking a quarterback. And all of a sudden, 9 days before the draft, oh, they don't like quarterbacks. And everybody knows it now. Like, now everyone knows the Texans plan. So I don't know what reason whoever put this thing out has for it, but it's so obvious that it was put out for a reason, because nobody's known anything. Everyone's thought they were going to take a quarterback. And now everybody knows that they don't want a quarterback. It's not just Schefter. It's not just Schrager. It's, well, what I'm hearing is the Texans aren't sold on a quarterback all of a sudden. Why in the hell would the Texans put that out there? It doesn't even make sense to me. Why would they put that out there? You would at least think like that they should act like they like the quarterbacks or something if they're trying to trade the pick. So the whole thing doesn't make sense. But everyone somehow now has the same clip, the same thing. And it's just like, you don't know anything.
No,
like,
here,
where do
you know
these
who
NFL insiders get this stuff and actually put it out as fact?
You know who I think does know something, though, is Lance Zierlein. Me and Lance go way back. Great guy. Love Lance Zierlein. And he was the first one. He put out that mock draft where he said Tyree Wilson was going to go second overall to Houston. And I kind of believe him. I think that feels like a Texans pick, does it not?
Yeah, the Texans are stupid.
He's very plugged in with that team. He knows what's going on. And I believe him. I think he knows that. And I think everybody else has maybe ran with that and acting like they know it, but they really just heard it from Lance. And I think Zierlein is right. I think they're going to go Tyree Wilson with a second pick. We might do a whole little mock draft thing where we run through, and predict the first 10 picks or something. But I think he's onto something there. I think they will pass on Will Anderson to everybody's surprise. I think they'll take Tyree Wilson with the second pick. And I think the Cardinals will trade the third pick to the Titans and take somebody like Stroud. Maybe.
Basically, it could be all smokescreen. Maybe the Texans move back to 4. Colts get up and get their guy, and they still take Tyree Wilson with that pick. Maybe Will Anderson, Jalen Carter goes with that 3rd overall pick. I don't think that's not true. What Jake said about Zierlein being like maybe Tyree Wilson is the Texans guy, but them taking him 2nd overall is gross mismanagement because they could trade back. Because everybody wants a quarterback. And if you don't want a quarterback, you have to capitalize. Just don't take Tyree Wilson at 2. I mean, that would so be a Texans thing to do. I mean, Nick Caserio does not belong in an NFL front office unless, he's the religious, god of the front office. Like, he doesn't belong in a front office. And nothing the Texans have done since trading away Deshaun Watson should give anybody confidence that they're going to make the right decision here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So yeah, it does feel like a Texan pick, and in that way, it just feels like that would be so stupid. I mean, Tyree Wilson better go on to have one of the best NFL careers we've ever seen. If you pick him number 2 overall in this draft and don't trade back or don't at least attempt to trade back, it would be just absolutely shocking. Just not even just because when you have the number 2 overall pick, it's like you have to get a sure thing. Like you can't just you have to get a guy who at the very least is a Pro Bowl caliber talent. And no one's saying that Tyree Wilson can't be that, but no one is sold on like, oh yeah, this guy's going to come in and be a Pro Bowler 5 times in his career or multiple times in his career, which you have to get out of the number 2 overall pick. And if you don't think any of the guys in this draft are that, you have to trade out of that pick, especially with so many teams wanting to move up and take a quarterback potentially. So let's stick back to the Falcons. Stroud is available. If he at what point, let's say they're not willing to move up to 2. They don't want to make that big push. But what if everyone is not as high on Stroud? If there isn't a bunch of teams out there wanting to trade for CJ Stroud, maybe the price tag on that pick isn't nearly as high as we expect. I mean, what would the Falcons have to give up? It doesn't matter where they trade up. Like, what's the amount that it's like, okay, that's enough to where we can trade up for CJ Stroud if you think he could potentially be the guy, compete with Desmond Ridder. Like, is it a 1st round pick? Is it 2 first round picks? Like, How far would they be willing to go to move up and get that guy? Because I don't think he falls to 8. I still think he probably goes number 2 in all likelihood, whether it's the Texans or someone else. I know he probably won't fall past 4. So what is the price tag that you'd be willing to give up, knowing that you still have Desmond Ridder and he could start next year, to go up and get a guy like Stroud?
I'm going to preface this by saying I do think he makes it to 8. I think he's going to go a lot lower than people expect. That's just my opinion. That's by 2 cents. It is what it is.
Well, so if he's there at 8, do the Falcons take him?
Wait, let me question that real quick. So do you think he's not the second quarterback taken? Do you think that?
I don't know if he's going to be the 4th.
What the hell are we doing?
Dude, we're talking about the NFL here.
Levis, Anthony Richardson, and then Hendon Hooker would go over him. Is that what you're saying?
No, Stroud. No.
I think he said he meant the 4th.
Oh yeah, the 4th. Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Yeah. No, absolutely not. Okay, and no, he did no. Like, so I think he could be the 4th. Justin Fields was the 4th, and I don't think he should have been the 4th in that draft either. But
that's a hot take.
It's definitely.
Well, I'm gonna clip it. I'm gonna clip that. That's getting clipped.
Well,
you get to.
No, you said it.
Let me re-say it in another way, so I don't say it as stupidly as I said it. I think he could be the 4th quarterback taken. I don't think that's too out of bounds. When you look at, we know this, guys. NFL teams kind of aren't that smart. Think about the Raiders. You don't think the Raiders would take Will Levis over Stroud? That feels like a Raiders move.
This is why these same teams are picking in the top 10.
I feel like that's why they pick in the top 10 every year. I feel like the Colts could fall in love with Anthony Richardson. I don't think that's too out of bounds. There's Bryce. There's Richardson to the Colts. Let's say the Raiders like Levis. There he is, 4th quarterback on the board. He could be available with the 8th pick. If the Falcons were going to trade up, I don't think that they should give up too much, mainly because you've done all of this parading around about how confident you are in Desmond Ridder. You have a chance to grab an impact defender with the 8th pick. Honestly, I don't see it. But if he does fall to the 8th pick, I wouldn't be surprised if they took him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think the Falcons trade up in any scenario unless, for some reason Bryce Young fell. I mean, that's not happening. I don't see the Falcons trading up at all. I do believe CJ Stroud will be a good NFL quarterback. I don't think he's as close to Bryce Young as, some people were saying earlier in the offseason. But I still think he'll be a good quarterback. I think he's a day one starter more so than Anthony Richardson is for sure. And, maybe NFL teams are, willing to sit and wait for Anthony Richardson to develop. But if the Falcons are picking at 8 and CJ Stroud is there and they pass on him, there will be a shitstorm because Desmond Ridder has a leg up on any rookie quarterback that comes in. He's been in the offense for a year. He has 4 games under his belt. He's got that kind of moxie that the team is following him a little bit. And if the team takes a rookie quarterback or doesn't, there's going to be a shitstorm either way. They take the rookie quarterback, and it's like, well, did you really believe in Desmond Ridder to begin with? If you don't take him, the fans are going to be like, are you serious? We're passing up CJ Stroud, who many considered the 2nd overall guy, for Desmond Ridder, a 3rd-round pick. I mean, either way, that's a shitstorm.
I mean, my thing is, if Desmond Ridder, you take CJ Stroud because you need to find a quarterback. A franchise quarterback is going to be worth 3 at least 3 of whoever you could potentially else draft today. Now, whether Desmond Ridder is the franchise quarterback or not, you still have him there. You can bring him in to compete. CJ Stroud doesn't have to win the job. Yes, it might not look good, but if Desmond Ridder goes out there and performs well, if he goes out and leads this team to the playoffs and Stroud's sitting on the bench, you can trade him next year, and you could still
for less than a 1st-round pick, for less than a 1st-round. Look at what Trey Lance.
I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that.
Look what Trey Lance is going for.
But it's different. It's different. It's way different. You saw Trey Lance go out there and play poorly. If CJ Stroud goes out, and trust me, all the narratives, regardless of if Stroud started
4
or not,
games.
He played terribly. He looked awful, and he suffered a major injury. And they're talking about trading him for a 2nd-round pick. Trey Lance suffered a major injury, has been in the league for 2 years. Like, it's a way different scenario. If CJ Stroud never sees the field, but everything's positive around him, he gets drafted 8th overall, you could still trade him for a 1st-round pick. And hell, if you traded him for a 2nd-round pick, it really doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. If Desmond Ridder is
you just wasted a top 10 pick.
It does not matter. You went out there and you took a chance and you made sure you got the quarterback position right. If Desmond Ridder goes out there and is a Pro Bowl next year and CJ Stroud doesn't play, you could still get a first-round pick for him, no problem.
I don't think so. And it's a difficult conversation to have. And this is the conversation the Falcons are certainly having. They have to have it. I just feel like taking CJ Stroud there's a more narrow path for it to work out. Let's say Desmond Ridder isn't the guy. Now you got to sit him or whatever you want to do with him. And then you give CJ Stroud a chance and he, doesn't do much better than Desmond Ridder. To your point, you're trying to figure out the quarterback position, yada, yada, yada. But in my mind, you draft CJ Stroud, Desmond Ridder does work out. You are not going to get a first-round pick for CJ Stroud. That is not how the NFL works. I mean, look at every single past guy who's been taken in the first round and then traded. And I know they've played, but these NFL teams are not going to give somebody a first-round pick for a guy who's just older now.
Because they don't have to.
He's a year older. He doesn't have the experience. He's already kind of been, pushed around in a team. He's not going to have the same value as he is as a moldable piece of clay coming out of college. He will not be valued as highly.
It's not even for any of those reasons. It's because you have no leverage. What are you going to do? Keep him?
Yeah, there you go.
But there's also a million other scenarios where CJ Stroud does come in and play, and let's say he plays well.
I don't see him coming in and beating Ridder.
Well, all right, no, that's what I'm saying. Well, first of all, what if he comes in and beats Ridder, and this conversation's a moot point? That's obviously could easily happen. Second of all, what if the best case scenario of both worlds happens? What if Desmond Ridder gets injured for 4 games, CJ Stroud balls out, look at San Francisco, now you have all these quarterbacks. You can go and move one of them for maybe better than the first-round pick. I mean, you could probably get 2 picks. If he goes out there and balls out too, just like Desmond Ridder, the point is the quarterback position is so vital to any success this team's going to have. If CJ Stroud falls to you at 8, I don't know how you don't take him. I just don't know.
Because if it gets to that point, I just mortgage the pick and get a first out of somebody next year.
Okay, well, if you want to do that, that's fine too. If you want to trade out of that, trade down the draft board and get your guys, 100% behind you. But I don't know how you don't. Those would be my 2 options. Like
if you like Nolan Smith as much as you say, that's probably
if you like Bijan Robinson. If you want to get another first-round pick out of it, more power to you. That's a great
Smith
move.
And Jigba.
I would say great job, Falcons. You got your guy. You got an extra first-round pick. Fantastic draft. But if CJ Stroud's there, I like personally, and listen, I'm on the get a quarterback and throw as many darts as you can, as many as you possibly can until you get a quarterback, because until that happens, this franchise is irrelevant. I don't care what anyone says. I love the moves they made this offseason. They're irrelevant until a guy can come in here and throw the football.
I still contend that Ridder is a lot better than, and I'm not saying that you don't think that, but I think that Ridder can come in and be the 16th best quarterback in the league at the end of the year. I think that he can do that, especially in this offense, which is loaded with weapons. It caters to the quarterback. It's very easy for a quarterback to come in and run this offense. It's not some West Coast scheme asking Patrick Mahomes to make to Joe Burrow to make 1 million reads and put it on a guy's back shoulder. Desmond Ridder is going to have to make 4 of those throws a game. He's not going to have to do a whole lot, and he's going to look good. And I just think that, if he's not the guy next year, you've got all this draft capital, still, you trade up and go get your guy. That's it's always going to be there. And we see every year teams trade up to go get their guy. Very rarely does the number 1, 2, and 3 or 4 pick all need quarterbacks. It's very rare. So I just think I like Jake's idea. CJ Stroud gets there, mortgage the pick, get another first, and bounce out and, just continue to bolster this roster. Give Desmond Ridder the chance that you say. Don't be this regime that goes this way, that way. Make a decision and stick with it. I just think drafting CJ Stroud it's very – I don't think it's going to work out the way that you're saying it is.
Well, the good news is in about 8 days, about a week, we'll know the answer.